Greg.
How you doing, Mitch?
Doing well. How about yourself?
Good. You're fired up today, huh?
I am.
Nice.
It was a good day in court that I had today. Hopefully we're in the tail end of this case, but we'll see what happens over the next couple of days. Got a trial at the end of the month, so
All right.
we'll see.
Good luck. Well,
thank you.
Thanks everybody for listening to our inaugural episode of SDL's Common Interest. We have very special guest, none other than Michael Stephen Luzzi today from Acrisure. How you doing, Mike?
Good, Greg. Mitch, good to see you. It's been a while since the second baby, so happy to be here.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mike. It's been a while. Yes, no sleep. What do you think of our title?
I like it. I think that it's impactful. Common interest. It has so many different types of communities that fall under that. So I think that being general, but also people know what you're talking about, and I think that's going to go a long way.
Good. And no one can steal it because we're copywriting it. So there.
Yeah,
if anyone's listening.
So we're going to talk about a little bit of everything, right? We're going to talk about some common interests, some communities, and whatever else is in the news that we feel like talking about.
Yeah. Yep. So
no real
what's
plan.
in the news, Mitch? You were very fired up about this topic today.
We just had Mike join. Let's hear a little bit about who Mike is.
It's
Me?
true.
Yeah.
Okay.
We know a lot about Mike.
We know about Mike, but
no one else does that's listening.
our
So go
listeners
ahead,
don't
Mike.
know.
Well, thank you for the nice introduction. I work for Acrisure, New Jersey. My specific division only handles community associations, common interest communities. We are based out of Easton, Pennsylvania. And the Jersey platform, our office is out of Fairfield. I do work out of my home some days, and I do also travel a lot. And we're seeing a lot of stuff in the marketplace. Things are going haywire. Could be multiple types of coverage, loss frequency issues, carriers pulling out of the marketplace. So that's been probably our biggest challenges the last year, and I think it's going to continue a little longer, but I think there'll be some light at the end of the tunnel.
So what is it you do? You sell insurance to people?
Yes, I'm a sales professional, so we are represent the associations. We are brokers, so we take the association and we shop it out each year, depending on the type of association. We'll approach various carriers, including the ancillary lines as well. And what's really unique about Acrisure is that we are a fintech company, and we're providing additional assets to our clients. For example, we have payroll services, we have HR teams within that, in addition benefits and other additionals like marina programs and various things like that.
Fintech sounds fancy. What is fintech? I have no idea. What is it?
It's a financial tech company, so.
Should have known. Just
Yeah.
based on just two words shortened. Huh?
Yeah, we're very proud of that. The platform is multiple offices coming together. So how can we pool our resources to help our clients, across the country, but specifically in our New Jersey region?
So who do you work with, like board members, property managers?
A little bit of both. We have relationships with board members, property managers, regionals of the management companies. We'd like to have a good hybrid relationship, meaning we're not just going to focus solely on one or the other. We feel that team environment, the team approach, it kind of suits everybody well. Ultimately, it's for the boards, right? So the more knowledge they have by working together with us and the management team, I feel that it makes a transition either to a new company for insurance or even just renewal. It goes a lot smoother, and they feel like they know what they're buying. They're not being taken advantage of.
Cool. So if you're a community association and you need to check your insurance, hit up Mike.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Yeah.
But here's the big important question: home or the office? What's the preferred workplace now?
I think both has its advantages. Being home, I can a little bit more quiet at times.
You got a kid though.
Yeah, childcare is a beauty though. Some days are a little bit rougher if he doesn't sleep.
Yeah.
But being at home, it's just sometimes easier to get the clients. The office is in Easton, so it's almost an hour from my house. But being in the office is great, camaraderie, get to meet with the team, bounce ideas. But with technology, we can jump on Teams or Zoom and take care of that as well. But also being in the office, I think that, you get the old feel of pre-COVID, right? And, just organization, sometimes grabbing lunch with somebody and catching up. So I think those are some general benefits of that.
I think that's like the age-old question now, or the new question is, which is the better workplace environment? Not that we're on common interest stuff, but that it's getting to the point where I like being back in the office, and we're here 2 days a week. At least those are our anchor days. It's good to see Greg. Greg's smiling.
I'm in 5 days. I'm in 5 days.
I'm generally in like 4, but it's good that we're
going to
back
ramp it up
here.
to 7 soon.
Every day, just bill. But it's good.
Yeah.
It's cohesive. It's good getting back into the swing. of
I had a
things.
board meeting in person yesterday. For the first time I've met these people. I've worked with them for like 3 years. First time I met them all in person. And it was actually nice, and it was actually funny because it wasn't like we hadn't seen each other. It was like we kind of had been seeing each other in person.
Smooth
for
transition.
Years.
Did they throw any comments? So we didn't expect you to
No.
be as tall or smaller or something. You know,
No. Better looking in person didn't come out. Surprisingly, they didn't mention that.
That would have been my
But,
first guess, right, Mitch?
That's what I would have said as well.
Yeah, but it was nice, and we packed into sardines in an office room and got the stuff done. So
Bagels, right? Or was it a
donuts? Donuts night.
Okay. Yeah. I had a meeting on Tuesday, and some people I've worked with for 4 or 5 years, and for those who don't know, I'm a pretty tall guy, 6'8". That was the first comment about half the board made. So it was, cause for some laughter.
Little difference seeing a 6-foot guy on screen versus in person, huh?
Yes.
You sound like a tall guy, though. If I hear you like on the phone, that's pretty much what I would assume. Tall guy.
All right. Well,
Like Mitch.
Just like me, yeah, 5'8".
Yeah.
So we got a foot different.
You sound at least 5'10".
So did you feel that the meeting was more impactful? You got more accomplished because it was in person, Zoom? Like, what do you think? Because for me, I see some differences which we can get into later. But from your side of view, what's more beneficial?
So what they did, and they did a great job. They put in a whole financial presentation, and they gave bad news of increases and issues that are going on in the community. But the fact that they were able to put on the presentation in person, people got to sit there. Normally, like 10 people sign up anyway for these meetings and log in. So this was 10 people sitting there, and it was good back and forth. And they can kind of see, everybody was on video. You have to talk to people in person, and after people were asking questions and staying later that normally you wouldn't get. I mean, I always get a lot out of it. Obviously, for us, being away from our family at nights is difficult, and the nicest part of the job is that we can do like 2 or 3 meetings at night, and we can still, get home or be home for our families. But there's definitely that element for like the big meetings where it's nice to do this stuff in person. So.
Yeah, I mean, this case I was just telling you about that might be going to trial, I was actually in person today for the first time since 19. So this case started in 14.
Wow.
So we had it in person, everything, conferences and whatnot. And there's 3 attorneys on it, and the judge remembered all of us. At least he said he did. So we were we're in there for a pre-trial conference in 2019. Trial got adjourned to like March of 2020. And then it just shut down everything. So we didn't see each other in person for 4 years almost. But
Wow.
it was wild going back to the same courthouse again after all that time. But it was more effective because we've had meetings remotely. We had meetings via Teams or Zoom with the court. And it was more impactful being in front of the judge in the courtroom. There was just more of like a better feel to it than just being in a Zoom environment. So I think it's kind of coming back to normal.
Well, it's like they say, like when you have a case, like you settle most of your cases like in the parking lot, right? Not at the conference. And if you don't have a parking lot, then you just log off and go about your day. So you lose that element. Like so many times I've walked out of a conference room or something, walking together, get coffee and say, all right, so what do you really need, right? What do I have to get you to be done with this thing? And sometimes the other way around, right? And so to lose that, you may delay the case another 6 months to the ultimate settlement because you didn't have those little conversations in between. You got to wait for the next settlement conference, or you got to spend money at a mediation to get what you could have accomplished, walking away and
I think the judge is more forceful and impactful on face-to-face as opposed to on the phone or on the computer screen too. I think it had more of an impact on all the parties to talk about some issues now and see if we can resolve it.
For sure. And and what about you, Mike? Right? So like you're there, selling insurance or trying to justify the marketplace and what's going on, right? It's like must be much more impactful to be in person in front of a board than on a Zoom screen.
Yeah, absolutely. They can, you have a good sense of emotions. In Zoom, actually, it's sometimes in person too. People can talk over each other. On Zoom, that happens all the time. But I feel, and when if you don't have somebody facilitating a Zoom meeting, it can just go haywire quick. Mm-hmm. When you're in person, you have a little bit more control of the room. It's more interactive, and I truly, have an emotional aspect, with every client because I truly care. And when you're explaining to somebody why there's a potential for risk or they have, poor risk management, how to improve risk management, there's maybe a rate increase. I think when they see you in person, they can understand how much you have invested in them from an emotional standpoint. And that's
right.
Kind of an interesting take on it. That's how we look at it because we're really promoting education. This is why we are in the state we are in. This is why, because you had XYZ claims, or maybe the market's just changing because coverage is changing. So,
mm-hmm.
You have to understand what are the differences on a year-to-year basis. And people just seem to be a little bit more receptive in person.
Well, think about it. Like sometimes we have to drive almost 2 hours, right? 2.5 hours to get to a meeting, maybe right in traffic.
Yeah,
go to Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
You go
2.5
all places.
today.
Yeah, 2.5 today for you, right, in Philly. So when you drive somewhere, when you're driving to a meeting to meet with a potential client, right? They see you went out of your way, like you've given up your whole afternoon to meet with them. I think that shows that you're committed, right? It shows you care more, and they should appreciate that and maybe
Yeah.
respect it more what you're trying to do, right?
I think that's a different thing now that you had the option of doing it like remotely, right? You had the option of logging on all of a sudden when that was not a thing, 3 or 4 years ago, it was always in person. But now you have the option of doing it remotely. So if you then go out of your way, like Mike, you're saying, like going in person, I think that's more beneficial to you, and I think it helps build and foster a different relationship with a potential client or
Yeah, it's easier to make small talk, meaning they get to understand you more on the human side.
Yeah.
Wife and kids, or if you do or do not. What are your interests? Football, basketball, golf. Different things like that, and you can just build that emotional connection. And I do think that's important for the fact that they want to be able to trust you. When you're in Zoom and Teams, sometimes they feel victimized, or they maybe feel like a number, or you maybe don't have as much time invested, and that goes back to driving, spending late hours. Now, other boards view it different, and some of the managers, they have a very efficient Teams or Zoom, I guess, way of doing it, right? They run through the agenda, and they're very efficient at it, but others are not so much, and that's okay too. But
And
I think
that may be a good indicator of whether you're going to get the client or not, is whether they want to meet in person or on Zoom. I've had some where it's like on Zoom and no one puts on their camera, and it's like, you guys are not really that committed to this, all right, I get it. Like
RFPs in person are much better than on Zoom because some of the factors I stated, but they really, really can just fire a lot of things at you at Zoom. When you're in person, it's a little bit more formal, I think, and I think that's what's the benefit of it. So
yeah.
You think most of your clients now want to meet in person, or is it still kind of mixed?
it's still a good mix. I wouldn't say 50-50, but it's pretty close to it. Some people like that ability just to meet whatever time, Zoom, Teams. I had a board meeting last night at 7:30 that ended at 8:30. Tuesdays, right? The baby's going down.
Yeah, I've been sleeping then.
No, I think the board wants to meet on Zoom. I don't think the board really wants to meet in person, but I think they want to have meetings in front of everybody in person to make it more accessible for them. Obviously, with 55 and older, that type of community, they want it more in person. But I think as a board members, like, they don't have time to meet like that. And some places don't have the space.
Well, the
right?
other aspect, is that they're volunteers, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes 55 and over have a little bit more time on their hands because they may be retired, and that's makes it easier to meet during the day or at an earlier time. But a lot of times, people are working late, they work hard. A lot of people are back to work. If you're in the Jersey City, Gold Coast area of New Jersey, you could be working in Manhattan or other areas of the state, and it's hard. It's a challenge.
Gold Coast, I like it. It makes us sound like very important.
Well, we're not really the armpit of the country.
The Gold Coast is so much better than armpit.
Yes, I really do think that's much better.
The Gold
way to
Coast is
describe
like
it.
the elbow or something, right? It's like higher up. It's not the armpit, but it's not anywhere you still want to be.
Better connotation than the armpit does.
Yeah, I think so at least.
Yeah.
Greg, you were not on Zoom last week, right? You went in person for a pretty cool event in DC I've never done anything like this, meeting with Congress people, and I assume that was a lot more beneficial in person than not. So
Absolutely, yeah.
What happened there?
We went down to the CAI Advocacy Summit down in DC, and I got to say, I've done a lot of CAI events, right? We've gone to a lot of cool locations. I think that was one of the coolest things I've done being in this industry for a decade, right? Is go down there, and for people that don't know what this is basically all the CAI members that are kind of dedicated to advocacy and want to see, changes being made for community associations to make sure they're getting the same access to governmental relief and benefits that private individual owners get. This is really to go down there and tell the representatives what we're trying to accomplish and who we are, right? So the CAI members from all the states came down, met with their individual representatives, met with their senators. So we got to meet with a staffer for Menendez, and we got to meet with Booker staff, and we got to meet with, for my district, Mikey Sherrill staff, and talk to them about what we wanted to see. It was very cool. Things like making sure we're exempt from the Corporate Transparency Act, which is registering board members on a federal database, which we're opposed to for a lot of reasons. Making sure that community associations can get FEMA relief for disaster recovery, for critical infrastructure. I mean, this is stuff that I'm asked at board meetings all the time. Mike, I know you're asked about
Oh,
stuff
yeah.
like that all the time, right? About infrastructure changes and things like that, and how do we get the money to make this happen? Because sometimes you have to be, and we have to be, the bearer of bad news, right? About what they need to accomplish, right?
Yeah, a lot of times it could be a burden financially, or just the whole change of structure of how they're doing things. You shared with me earlier this week. Tell the story about an individual that you were with down there that actually got something accomplished almost on the spot.
Yeah, this
I
was
think
pretty
that's really
cool.
cool.
Yeah, so shout out to John Reichert from First Service, because this is one of the coolest stories. So he had one of the first meetings with his local congressman, Tom Kane, and normally you meet with staffers, but he actually got to meet with the congressman. The congressman set aside time for him to go over the policies. He said it was Congressman Kane, it was his attorney, and it was John talking about the policies. And right then and there, he got a commitment to sign on to certain relief for 529 plans, which is one of the things that we were trying to have accomplished. So if you have a 529 savings plan, you're supposed to spend it on college education, right? But there's a lot of people that don't go to college.
I just started my second one.
Right. You just started your second one.
Can't wait.
Right. So sometimes you want to give it, for a particular trade and education, or in our case, you want to give it for property management education to get your designations, right? Your CMCA, your PCAM, those designations. So on the spot, the congressman looked at his attorney and said, well, if my attorney says it's okay, then I'll do it. Attorney said, fine. He got a commitment right then and there in about probably, 15, 20-minute meeting to sign on to really, really important legislation for our industry to make sure that managers have access to resources and funds to get education and to get designations, which are going to help the management company, it's going to help the community associations, and it's going to put more money in the manager's pocket, because now they're going to have more on their resume to build. So that was one of the coolest stories I think I got out of that whole thing, is that you actually can make a change. Not everyone had a hit like that, right? But at least it was great that we were all there to, kind of show that, like, we're not going anywhere, and there's a lot of us, and we're going to be back, and make that case that, like, we're not a corporation. Community associations are just people pulling resources together to fund important projects that they need done, right?
Yeah,
Just
I
like
think
taxes.
What you just said about education, we touched on that earlier a few moments ago, and I think that's ultimately what one of the best things about CAI is, right? Is how much education they promote, bringing in various business partners, subject matter experts, whether it's insurance, you could have an engineering company, banking. It really, knowledge is power.
Attorneys.
And of course, that's stating the obvious. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
SDL here, man.
Just saying. Don't get a shout out to the attorneys.
Oh, well, I mean, I thought that was already spoken for. Like, working with guys like you, the more they know, it just makes them be able to talk about items, some of those structural changes maybe that are coming, whether it's potential EV stations, changes in the insurance marketplace, looking at engineer reports, because a lot of times these managers, some are new, but some are very seasoned, and they know what they're doing, and they do it very well. Mm-hmm. And what changes the most in a particular community association could be the boards. And so if you have a lot of turnover, the more that they know, the quicker that they know it, I think it just makes everything run a little bit smoother on every level, whether it's attorneys, insurance, engineering, things like that. Knowledge is power. I really can't stress that enough.
I like that. I'm gonna go on a tangent here in my soapbox about EV, because I have one. I have one. And today I had my first experience of charging it outside of my house. Wild.
What did you get? Did you
Did you take a nap while it was charging?
No,
What'd you do?
I had to go to different charging stations because there was ones that were
Tesla,
broken.
Jeep, or what would you go with?
Mercedes.
Okay.
Mercedes.
Bougie.
Yeah. So it was a nice family vehicle, with all the kids that I now have. So it's I had to go to multiple stations to get it, and I was like, is this worth it? And so I was on the way back from court, as I've now said a couple times, and driving back home, there was one on the way, unavailable. Well, so then I was panicked because my thing says I'm running out of battery in like 30 miles, and I gotta find one and figure out how to do this. So then I wrong turned it, GPS sent me the wrong direction. Finally, crisis was averted. I got back here to the office, but it was an interesting experience. A lot different than just plugging it at home.
What's it called? Is that anxiety? What is it called?
Yeah, it's called battery anxiety.
Battery anxiety or something?
Electric anxiety. There is a term for it because of the dealership. They're like, make sure you stay above 20% or else you get the anxiety thing.
Yeah.
Well, I got it for
I
sure.
guess it's real.
It was real.
So you're only supposed to fill it to 80% though, because then after 80%, it takes forever to get to 100. So that's where you want to be.
I saw that today too. Yes. So once it hit 80, then it
So
slowly went up.
How long did you have to wait for it to charge until you felt safe to drive without the anxiety?
So if I wanted to drive right away, it probably would have taken 10 minutes to be with no anxiety. But then I was like, I'm here, I'm reading emails, I'll just hang out and wait till it charges fully. But that's when I saw, once you got over 80%, it just like trickled. So I left that station with like 90%, and I got back here, and I'll go
All is
home
well.
and charge.
So you made it?
And I made it here. It's all good.
So,
So I like those.
regrets or no regrets on the purchase?
I don't have regrets. No, I mean I just wish it had some more longer mileage, but no regrets. So it's a good family vehicle. I like it.
Good family vehicle.
Yeah,
Good.
and hopefully we get some good laws passed to get more EVs in associations. Plus, see how I brought it back? Associations as well as on the road in general.
Well, we definitely need to cover that on a future episode. I think we should bring in potentially an engineer on that to talk about some of the specifics. And we should probably bring Dawn in. Dawn's on my team. She's out of South Carolina, does a lot of support. But Greg and I spoke with Dawn at New Jersey's annual show in 22 and covered that. And I think that'd be a really interesting topic for almost a whole episode, really.
Yeah, depending on where you are in the community, it's like the biggest issue because everyone wants it or everyone's afraid of it. And I think both have a really good point. So
And
somewhere in the middle is the right answer.
What type of community, if you're a high-rise versus an HOA, those are all different things that are, they matter a lot because it's how you're going to structure the charging stations. So.
For sure.
Here's another good question for you, Greg. You went down to DC. What's it like to be in the capital? Does it have like that same like gravitas, like stuff? Sometimes stuff happens there, but like stuff that actually get passed and bills become laws and the whole song that I learned when I was a kid.
Yeah, I hadn't been there since I was like 7 years old. And so I have no idea at that time if much has changed, but it was actually pretty cool. I'm not a big like political guy or any of that stuff, but it was actually pretty cool to see. We did like a tour of the Capitol, but to see all of the chambers and like Congress was in session when we were there, so you can see like people running around because they were taking votes and stuff like that. So it was pretty cool, and the area is beautiful. We were staying down by the wharf. And that was like really nice down like a little bit away from like some of the touristy areas. So like the restaurants and stuff are really good. So it was definitely a cool place. It was like pretty wild to like be walking down. We saw like Congressman Gottheimer. He was like walking down. We're like, whoa, okay, there's like a congressman just like walking down, So it's pretty cool.
It's not being very political. You seem to be.
I didn't know
a lot
that.
of names.
Political and the Political Action Committee, how are you not very political?
By the
Come on.
legislative
sorry.
action committee.
Apologies, listeners.
I'm about the
apologies.
law, man. All right, I'm about the law. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's good.
And I didn't know who he was. The person I was with pointed him out.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that you got to do a lot of sightseeing and things like that. Favorite meal down there? Did you have a spot?
Yeah, we went to a really good Italian place. I forget what, San Marino or something like that. It was really good, like homemade pasta, and like everything was awesome. Like just good Italian food down there. And we're in New Jersey, obviously, so we're pretty critical. But it was
Favorite part of the tour? How about that? What was your favorite part of the tour?
what is it, the Rotunda or something, where you look up and you see like that famous one of George Washington. That was pretty cool. We got to see all the statues and all that stuff. So
it was cool. I worked a election when I went to school down there, undergrad, and I worked an election. An inauguration when I think it was Bush, so it was 2000. I forgot who it was actually. But yeah,
It was so long ago.
I'm so old at this point.
He doesn't remember.
2 kids
could you
in, I
imagine?
just forget everything.
he's thinking about how much battery life he has in his car right
Yes.
now. Yeah.
Or how
And
many
all the
times?
crying tonight.
You're probably thinking about how many times you have to charge if you drove back down. I mean,
Yes,
that's
multiple times.
So how are you going to factor in the charging for some of these family trips? Family vehicle, you said. I mean, have you thought about that?
No, I haven't.
Oh.
Unfortunately, and here we go. And the GPS tells me where I can charge on the way down, but it told me that I would make it to this charging station with only 12% battery. And I was like, well, the anxiety started going off again because it had already been after the first place didn't have the electricity or whatever I needed. So I don't know. Let's hope it gets better the next time I do it.
It sounds like we'll be picking Mitch up on the side of the road somewhere soon. On
Maybe I'm going back to gas.
with our gas guzzlers.
on the
I'm
turnpike.
going back to gas. Yeah. I don't know if I can make it down to DC. I don't know what would happen.
Well,
On the way
think
down
about-
95.
Think about every family car ride where it's like I have like a 2.5 hour max in the car with my family, but with the
I
charging
have a 2-day max too. I don't like to go out.
Yeah, 2 night.
All
Right?
2 night.
2 night max, 2 hour car ride. But with the charging, it's like a 4 hour car ride. You gotta wait. That's a big mistake.
Nah, it's 30 minutes if you charge it right. Then you just have to do it again when you get someplace.
I hope you saved the receipt on that one. I don't know about that.
I did. It was cheaper than gas though, I think.
Yeah, I'm sure it was.
So, Greg, circling back, how long do some of these things take to implement change? Is it a year-to-year thing, months? To be honest, I'm not very sure. I'd love to participate in the next one, but I'm not really familiar in how that works as far as timelines.
So what they told us was it's not going to be anytime soon. But some of the plans have some of the laws have a lot of momentum, like that 529 plan. That's like a bipartisan thing, right? There's no Democrat, like Mikey Sherrill, she has a military background. Like her staffer said that she was on board. Like we don't even have to really explain that one. She was going to, like, I believe, be in favor of that. Tom Kaine, Republican, was in favor of that on the spot, right? So there's a lot of things that can move quickly like that. Some of them more maybe like ones that require funding, right, or another pathway for associations to get relief may take longer because you're going to have to convince everybody that either it's not coming from the Treasury Department or something, or it's not coming from federal funding, or if it is coming from federal funding, you have to show that it's worth it, right? So you have to go through all the different studies, and that's what the people at CAI were like so smart because they do this, right?
Yeah.
They're the brains behind it. We're just the representation, right? So we just show up and we just say, we agree with this, here's why. And then if you want the data and support, CAI will gladly provide to you all that data for how much this will cost or not cost for you.
Did other members of the committee feel it was beneficial? Did anyone meet challenges within their conversations, or was there a particular topic that was more challenging than others?
I think everybody got a lot out of it. I didn't have one person that said it wasn't worth it. And normally, when we do things like this, networking or whatever, but this was really not even about that. This was about just like the experience of doing this, and it was an honor to be able to do that. Like, we do this stuff for a living, but it was an honor to be able to represent a bunch of people and that we work with and we represent, and like my clients. And the next day I got to go and share with my clients what it was I talked about and what we did, and they were so happy to hear that
Yeah.
These are the things that we're fighting for and we'll keep them updated on. So I got a lot out of it. Overall, I don't know anybody had a bad experience with the whole thing. So.
I think it's pretty cool that you got to do it. You saw government like in action or in action or not in action, whatever you want to view it. But the fact that they actually met with you and they actually heard your views and listened to you, I think it's pretty cool. It's like your representatives are actually doing like work on behalf of the community.
So I don't know if anybody got their meeting canceled. Like I'm sure there was one or two meetings that got canceled or postponed or something, but I don't know anybody that showed up to an office and nobody gave them at least 10 or 15 minutes of time and to leave their materials there, with the congressperson to eventually review.
And I know a lot of CI events could be on a year-to-year basis, annual conference, annual law seminar, even on local chapters. Is this something that you guys do every year, every other year, every 3 years? What's the time frame for you guys to go back and either talk to them about new things or follow up?
I think the plan is every other year. I think based on like the election cycle and things like that, every year it's kind of overkill based on their agenda and what they're trying to accomplish. Because again, once we walk away, they go back, right? And they go back into those offices and say, you met with Greg Vinogradsky, right? And so now we're here to follow up on that and with all the data and all the talking points that we want to make sure that that you hit. So to do it every year is a bit much, but I think every other year. So not next year, but 2025, we'll do it again. So I definitely want to participate again in it.
2 years from now, you're going to update us again on what happened here.
I know, and everyone's like, "Oh, what are we going to do in 2 years?" It's like probably talk about the same stuff.
Well, I'm sure some things will drag out that long. Hopefully, like the 529, they'll act relatively quickly. But then again, it does take a lot of hurdles to jump for some of these items, as you said, funding and whatnot. So
yeah,
that 529 plan is a pretty cool thing. I know they're trying to expand like different ways to get access to education and having money being able to give you access to education. So that's good.
Yeah, I mean, in the meantime, we have like all the state work we're doing, right? Like the Legislative Action Committee's working on all the state laws and working with, the Department of Community Affairs to get things done. So there's like a lot of stuff we'll do this year on the state level, and then keep hammering away on the federal stuff. But I mean, as you've all like seen, right? It's like the local stuff that matters the most, right? So we get the most done at a local level. And so that's what we're trying to focus on this year with like critical infrastructure bills and stuff like that we need to make sure happens in our state.
We like those immunity provisions in Jersey, so make sure they don't change that in the law.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, if I was in charge of the LAC, which I'm not, obviously, but if I could add things to it, I would definitely want to expand toward immunity for community associations and the management companies, right? Like right now.
You want to go over what you think is most important about that real quick for everyone?
Yeah, so right now in New Jersey, your community association, and this is something I know that you stress, Mike, is that you can have tort immunity in your bylaws by 2/3 vote of the membership. That means that if somebody has a bodily injury in your community and they're a unit owner, they cannot sue the association for ordinary negligence. They can for gross negligence, which is a super high standard to meet, but not ordinary negligence. This obviously is a tremendous resource for communities to try to get relief from insurance premium hikes and just overall increased exposure on their end if they don't have it, right? So what I would like to see, and this is kind of that gray area that we argue, right, as defense counsel for associations a lot of times, is the management companies. The law doesn't say anything that the management company, who is just an agent for the community association, is barred from liability, right, or is immune from liability. So I would love to see some type of an amendment to that statute to include the management company. And I think, I don't know why they wouldn't be, and it's very simple, because all you have to say is the community association or the common interest community, which is, I believe, the way it's defined in the statute, the common interest community, and or its managing agent. Like, it's literally 2 words. Because in court, when we argue it, we always include the management company, right? Because how they don't have a greater duty than the community association that they're an agent for. So it seems pretty straightforward to me in court. I'd love to have a statute to rely on. And if I had any say in anything, I would, which hopefully I will, but maybe one day. But
One day, yes.
I would love to introduce that because, again, I don't see the downfall in having that included anyway, because it's just, again, protecting the association. Because what happens? The management company is indemnified by the association anyway, right? So when you sue the community association, you always sue the management company. The community association's insurance carrier will pick it up based on indemnity, so they'll cover both entities. Well, if you dismiss the community association but not the management company, you still have a claim on the association's policy, right? So the association's carrier is still spending money just defending the management company now. It's for the conduct that the community association asked them to do. So it seems straightforward to me. It's something I think maybe should get worked out.
I'm going to put him on the spot a little bit more. Can you touch on the aspect of communities that have high renters? Some are, a lot higher than others. How does tort immunity apply to renters, and are you seeing any issues in communities with high rental?
So based on the statute, it doesn't apply to rentals, right? It only applies to the owners. That's why the statute is very clear on that. So if you're a tenant, a guest, you are still able to pursue a claim against the community association.
Yeah, I think that's important for people to know because they may not fully grasp that, right? I mean, we kind of have a good general idea of what that is and how it works, but I think for communities that are looking to introduce that, I think that's really important for them to know while working with your community association professional.
Yeah, like high rental communities, right? They may not get that much out of something like this, but it's still, what's the downfall in it? The claim is always like, well, what if I fall? I want to sue the community association, Well, first of all, you're probably going to sue a third-party vendor anyway, right? Like, if you slip and fall on ice and snow, you may sue the snow contractor or the landscaper anyway, so you probably still have a claim, but you just won't be able to sue yourself, right? So you won't be able to sue your own interests. And that often, everyone thinks they have insurance, whatever, but you only have insurance up to a certain amount, right? If you exceed that, what pocket do you think that's coming out of, right? Your own pocket, the community association's pocket. They're going to have to raise dues, special assessments. I mean, it's.
I just don't think that's the way that people see it. Like, they see I'm hurt and someone's responsible, so I'm going to sue Association X.
Yeah.
And I'm going to recover money, not thinking that if it's above the insurance limits, then hey, I might get hit with a special assessment to cover whatever the injury that I had.
Right.
So,
and that's not to say that people aren't really hurt, right? Like, people get hurt, and a lot of them, the injuries are really bad, and you want them to be made whole. But so many that I've had are from disgruntled owners or residents, right?
We like to call those bad apples.
The bad apples, right? Where you ask for, the history of the owner or something, and you get like 50 pages of complaints from the owner or violations that they might have been hit with or fines over and over and over again. And then there's an accident, right? And then they bring a claim against the association. Or they're delinquent, haven't paid maintenance fees in 5 years, and they bring a claim against the association, right? So, yes, that happens. But some people are hurt. But still, I think that based on the way the law usually goes, there's almost always a claim that they can pursue. whether it's against the community association, and if the community association is barred under the tort immunity, there's third parties or other people that they can pursue relief from.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, I
like
think
this. Any more to put them on the spot? I like when you put them on the spot.
I'm thinking. I mean, I do want to add one thing to that on the insurance side. Having a risk mitigation tool like that is very important in your loss frequency. Now, a lot of times there's a big difference in, hey, we've only had X, Y, Z in payouts, but we've, had 10 losses, right? So 10 losses is a lot. So if you have low payouts and high reported losses with minimal payouts, that's a loss frequency issue. So you're going to have a big deterrent, and you're going to have less claims on your loss runs or loss history. So you're going to be more desirable to a carrier. And I think carriers are looking into deeper things like that from community associations for them to take the steps to prevent losses and how can they protect themselves as best they can.
So is that on the loss frequency issue? I've had sometimes I've had clients say, I don't want to pay because I don't want that to show up my loss run. That I don't want the indemnity payment, the settlement payment to show up on my loss run. Not that they actually have control, because there's no like SIR, there's no self-insured retention, but it's just what they're thinking in their mind. So what do you see? Do you see issues of too much money getting paid out, and then like carriers not wanting to cover, or the premium getting increasing or going through the roof? Like how would you counsel a client that is worried about paying a loss on a claim, on a lawsuit?
Well, some things are going to be out of your control, right? You don't know how big the claim could be, if it's water damage or something along those lines. But I think that's really good to do your due diligence as a board, as working with your manager and your insurance professional, your attorneys as well, to discuss different deductible options. A lot of times people get upset when we're offering a higher deductible, but that's another way to keep those loss frequency issues down, to not have to worry about paying those small petty claims.
Because you're not reporting it because
So
the
you're
deductible's so high.
And we're not talking 100,000. Back in the day, right, 10, 12, 15 years ago, when I first started writing community association insurance, a lot of deductibles were 1,000, 2,500. The big jump was $5,000. Everyone was, oh my gosh. Well, now $5,000 is becoming the minimum, and people are jumping up to 10 and even 25. So just taking, I don't want to say it's a small step, but taking that measure, on a higher level, you're going to be saving yourself in the long run to not have to worry about those claims.
I have so many boards that recently have gone up to 25, right? Because they have like so many claims, water damage and things like that. 25,000 deductible, right? And the blowback is like, well, who's going to pay for that 25,000 below, right? So what? My advice is to create a risk allocation of deductible to the unit owner that's responsible, right?
Yeah. Well, you got to you can give them a little bit more skin in the game. They may not be happy about that, but by having them responsible for that, it's going to make them think about it a little more.
But like the reality is that, play it out, right? You have somebody that causes a water leak. You have a $25,000 deductible. The claim is $50,000, right? So they transferred the $25,000 to the unit owner that caused it, right? What do you think that unit owner is going to do with the $25,000 that they've been hit with? They put it through their insurance company, right? Their homeowner's insurance.
And
they pay like hundreds of dollars on their homeowner's insurance, and they're going to get that claim picked up, right? You hope so, but you assume that their homeowner's insurance typically will pick up that $25,000.
Yeah, not all do. So that's always good to verify.
Not all do, right? So if it's depending on how the liability and all that stuff, but a lot will, and they will just because they want to make it go away, and they don't have to fight their insured over having to pay that, because their insured is going to be assessed this whether the carrier picks it up or not.
Correct.
So now you have the homeowner that submitted a claim for $25,000 that got paid, that's gone. You have your claim for the community association, and they're only going to have to pay that $25,000. If you keep doing that, you're going to reduce significantly, right, the payouts on all the claims for the community association. I would hope that would reduce the amount of increases on the premiums, and that would
absolutely
look better, right?
It may not be flat, or there's no exact percentage per se, but you're going to be looked at a lot more favorably from an underwriting standpoint if you're doing things like that.
Or take it this way, say it's just a $25,000 loss, but the deductible is $25,000. You can still assess the responsible unit owner for that if you have the right resolution and language in place, right? You can still shift it to them. And guess what? Now the association doesn't have a claim. And everyone, you know, that's listening may say, well, what about the homeowner? They got to put a claim through. How many claims is the homeowner going to put through in the lifetime, right? Like, you've owned a home. How many claims have you put through, Mitch?
None.
None.
I'm sorry, one. I put through
One.
one in an association.
Right.
Water damage.
Right.
And in the home that I own, though, none.
Right. I've never put a claim through my homeowner's insurance. If you're listening, homeowner's insurance carrier, I've never put a claim
Lower that
through.
premium.
Right, lower that up. So, you know, how many have community associations that have 400 unit owners? How many claims
It
do
could
they
be
have?
a lot on a year-to-year basis. I mean, you know, I've seen situations where something may renew mid-year and, you know, 6 months later, halfway through the policy term, they could have 10 claims. Could be more, could be less. But I've seen that where it's like, wow, you know, we got through that renewal, wasn't that bad. But now they already know, right, that anxiety. They had that anxiety because they know that they're going to be hit next year, potentially.
Yeah.
So what can you do as a board, as an association, to help lower that? And I think that's where we're going with this.
I like that callback to earlier in the episode. I like it.
So
You have to think about it.
So this all goes back to, right, the strongest managers, the most educated, understand this. So what do? They prepare their boards in advance for this, right? They say, we're going to get rocked on our premium, right? Because it's going to go up because we've had 1 million claims. Or maybe they just came onto the property and see, whoa, you guys have had like 10 claims last year for water damage or something. What's your deductible? 10,000. Okay, got to call your insurance professional, right? Jack it up to 25,000. And they know that's what they have to do. Then the next step is call the association's attorney to draft the proper language to make sure that anything below the deductible can be transferred to the responsible unit owner. Smart managers who have that education can do that and understand that process and can prepare boards for that. And then if you get increases, at least you can justify all of the things that you've done to prevent as many losses, as many claims as possible, right?
Yeah, I think that the theme of this is education, because the more things are changing, as they have the last few years, people have to be aware of what's going on. And a lot of boards have changed, especially in the last 2 to 3 years, because they're seeing things go on. They're seeing increases for insurance. I'm sure on the law side, there's been numerous things that you guys could go over. You know, even just your eggs, you know, the groceries, right? How much they're going up. So by making that change and getting on a board, they feel that they can be impactful and they can have a say in what goes on.
Mitch doesn't eat eggs? What, you're making your face?
Eggs are good.
Eggs are good. I mean,
eggs are good. I eat
Mitch,
them
Mitch
every
has
now and
chickens
then.
at home. He doesn't know how much eggs cost. Yeah.
They're just in the back.
Yeah.
The back, I just grow my own eggs.
All right.
Greg just makes stuff
You know what?
up.
I
Greg just makes stuff up. Anyway, this is a good episode. Education and electric vehicles. I think we talked about it all.
Yeah.
I just want to say I learned something new about Mitch every time I meet him. It's just,
Mitch has chickens. Now we
I had a
know.
fox in my yard yesterday.
Did you?
I think it was. I have to verify. Maybe animal control. I'm not sure who to call. Ariana was like, take a picture. I was like, okay, then what? What do we do with a picture?
What do you have to call anybody? It's an animal.
The
Just let them
just-
run
just
away.
went into the
zipping
woods.
right through. He wants nothing to do with
Just,
you.
I don't know. We're just. I don't
Did
know.
you hide
We came
behind
from- we came from
Ariana?
Hoboken. We didn't know. We're in the suburbs, and there's animals. We got deer. Hunter loves a deer, but there was a fox. So I didn't want to send Hunter outside.
And
Fox
where we
outside.
live, I mean, we're in Morris County. I mean, we have bears and
Okay.
all different, you know, scared of a
We
little
got a
fox.
lot of
Mitch?
foxes.
It was a little fox. It was, yes.
You ever hear a fox in heat? It's terrifying.
Fox.
Sounds like a little baby screaming. It's
I
horrifying.
can't say that I have. I mean, that's a little bit odd, but
It is.
you know.
Well, that's a wrap based on that, Greg. I think it was a good first episode of the Common Interest. Mike, thanks for coming by. Thanks
Yeah, I
for
appreciate
joining
it.
us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
And, yeah, we come back again. Come
I'm
see
just
us
I'm
again.
gonna work my way into be a regular, whether you
It
guys
sounds
like
like
it
you
or
want
not.
to be a regular.
I think this is a pretty solid team here, and I appreciate you helping me get through this episode, Mitch. It was wonderful.
No problem. Good seeing you, Mike. Greg, as
Take care.
always, good job.